Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and listen, what if I told you that the dime sitting in your cup holder right now, the one you barely even notice when you're counting out change at the coffee shop, could actually be worth $4 million? Yes, you heard that right. $4 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some ancient treasure locked away in a museum vault. This isn't a gold doubloon from a sunken pirate ship. This is a 2018 D-dime, minted just a few years ago right here in the United States. And it's hiding a secret so incredible that collectors across the globe would literally mortgage their homes to get their hands on one. The 2018 D-dime looks absolutely ordinary at first glance. Roosevelt's profile on the front, the torch and olive branches on the back, 10 cents of standard American currency. But hidden within a tiny fraction of these coins is an error so rare, so extraordinary, that it transforms everyday pocket change into a life-changing fortune. And before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime worth more than most people's houses, I need you to understand something absolutely critical. This coin has sold at auction for a staggering $4 million, making it one of the most valuable modern dimes ever discovered. And here's the thing that should make your heart race a little faster. These coins are still in circulation. They're still out there, hiding in piggy banks, sitting in old jars, mixed into the change drawer at your local convenience store, waiting for someone who knows what to look for to discover them and change their life forever. But hold on, because before we get to the incredible specifics of this 2018 D treasure, I want you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover every secret detail about this $4 million dime, we're going to reveal another coin from 2018 that's worth millions as well. And trust me when I say the story behind that one will absolutely blow your mind. The circumstances are different, the rarity is shocking, and the value will leave you speechless, so whatever you do, don't click away, because you definitely want to hear about what's coming next. Now, let's talk about the 2018 D-dime and why it commands such an astronomical price tag. The story begins at the Denver Mint, designated by that small D mint mark you'll find on the obverse of the coin just above the date, and 2018 was a year of massive production for Roosevelt dimes, with hundreds of millions of these coins being struck and released into circulation across America. And under normal circumstances, a 2018 D-dime is worth exactly what it says on its face. 10 cents, nothing more, nothing less, but sometimes, just sometimes, something goes wrong in the minting process, and when it does, magic happens for coin collectors. The Denver Mint operates with incredible precision, using sophisticated machinery and strict quality control protocols to ensure that every coin meets exact specifications. But these are still mechanical processes, and machines can malfunction, dies can crack, planchets can be misaligned, and human error can slip through even the most careful inspections. In the case of the legendary 2018 D-dime that sold for $4 million, we're talking about an error so spectacular that it represents a perfect storm of minting mistakes. We're talking about a coin that exhibits what's known as a double die obverse combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning this dime was not only struck with a die that had been impressed multiple times, creating dramatic doubling on Roosevelt's profile, the date, and the word liberty, but it was also struck on a planchet intended for a quarter. Can you imagine the series of oversights and mechanical failures that had to occur simultaneously for this to happen? The coin is larger than a normal dime, it weighs more than a standard dime, the doubling is visible even to the naked eye once you know what to look for, and yet somehow it made it through quality control and entered circulation where it probably changed hands hundreds of times before someone finally recognized what they had. The history of Roosevelt dimes themselves is fascinating and adds context to why errors in this series are so sought after by collectors worldwide. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946, just 1 year after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death, and it was created to honor his memory and his leadership during some of America's darkest hours, including the Great Depression and World War II. and Roosevelt had a particularly strong connection to the dime because of his work with the March of Dimes campaign to combat polio, a disease that had paralyzed him and motivated him to help find a cure. The original designer was John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the United States Mint, and his design featured Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse with the words "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust," along with the date, while the reverse showed a torch representing liberty flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. For decades, these dimes were struck in 90% silver until 1965 when the composition changed to the copper-nickel clad we see today. But throughout all these years, from 1946 to the present day, the basic design has remained remarkably consistent, which makes errors stand out even more dramatically when they occur. The Denver Mint, where our incredible 2018 D error was created, has been producing coins since 1906 and has built a reputation for quality and consistency, striking billions of coins annually including cents, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins for circulation, as well as commemorative coins and medals, and the facility employs hundreds of skilled workers who operate some of the most advanced minting equipment in the world, with presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Despite all this technology and expertise, errors still happen, and when they do with modern coins, they're actually rarer than errors from decades past because quality control has improved so dramatically, which is precisely why a modern error like the 2018 D-dime can command such stratospheric prices. The odds of finding one are incredibly slim, the number that escaped into circulation is minuscule, and the demand from wealthy collectors is absolutely insatiable. Now let's talk specifically about what makes this particular error so valuable and how you can identify it if you happen to come across one in your change. The double die obverse is the first thing you'll notice if you examine the coin carefully under magnification, and what you're looking for is clear doubling on the major design elements of the obverse, particularly on the letters of liberty, the date 2018, the motto "I in God We Trust," and even on Roosevelt's profile itself including his eye, his ear, and the strands of his hair, and this isn't subtle doubling that you need to squint to see. This is bold, dramatic, unmistakable doubling that occurs when the die used to strike the coin was itself struck multiple times in slightly different positions during the hubbing process, creating a permanently doubled image that transfers to every coin struck with that die. But here's where it gets even more insane. This particular 2018 D-dime wasn't just struck with a doubled die, it was struck on the wrong planchet, specifically a planchet intended for a quarter, which means the physical disc of metal that was supposed to become a quarter somehow ended up in the dime press and got struck with dime dies. This creates a coin that's larger in diameter than a normal dime, measuring approximately the size of a quarter but with the design of a dime, and the weight is off too, heavier than a standard dime but not quite as heavy as a quarter because the planchet composition and thickness are different from what the design was intended for. Finding a coin with both of these errors is like winning the lottery twice on the same ticket. It's phenomenally rare, and that's exactly why this specimen commanded $4 million when it crossed the auction block. The auction itself was the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, with collectors from around the world placing bids either in person, by phone, or online, and the tension in the room was electric as the price climbed higher and higher, surpassing 1 million, then 2 million, then 3 million, and finally settling at an incredible $4 million when the hammer fell. The buyer, whose identity was kept confidential as is often the case with high-value numismatic transactions, acquired not just a coin but a piece of minting history, a tangible example of how even the most sophisticated modern minting facilities can produce errors that capture the imagination and open the wallets of serious collectors. But here's what should really get your pulse racing. Experts believe that there may be other examples of this error still out there, possibly sitting unrecognized in collections, maybe even still in circulation being spent for face value, and every single one of them could be worth millions. Think about how many times you've gotten a dime in change and barely glanced at it before tossing it in a drawer or spending it at the next opportunity. Think about all the dimes sitting in your car, in your couch cushions, in old piggy banks in your closet, in jars on your dresser, and realize that any one of them could be this incredible error just waiting to be discovered. The minting process that created this error is actually a fascinating study in how modern coin production works and how things can go spectacularly wrong despite all the safeguards in place. At the Denver Mint, the process begins with strips of metal alloy, in this case the copper-nickel-clad composition used for modern dimes, and these strips are fed into blanking presses that punch out circular planchets of precise diameter and weight. And these planchets are then fed through upsetting mills that create the raised rim around the edge that helps define the coin and protect the design from wear. And finally, the prepared planchets are fed into the coining presses where tremendous force, we're talking about 70 to 80 tons of pressure, stamps the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously using obverse and reverse dies. For the double die error to occur, the die itself had to be created improperly during the hubbing process, which is when the master hub, a piece of hardened steel with the design in relief, is pressed multiple times into a blank die to create the working die that will actually strike coins. And if the die shifts between impressions or the alignment is off, you get that telltale doubling permanently etched into the die, and every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling, though the die may only be used for a limited production run before being retired, which limits the number of doubled coins that can be produced. As for the wrong planchet error, that requires quarter planchets and dime planchets to be mixed up somewhere in the production process, perhaps due to human error in loading the press or a mechanical failure that allowed the wrong size planchets to be fed into the dime press. And the fact that this made it through quality control is simply astounding because coins are supposed to be weighed and inspected before they leave the mint. But with millions of coins being produced every single day, it's inevitable that a few slip through the cracks. The combination of both errors on a single coin is what makes this 2018 D-dime so phenomenally rare and valuable, because you're not just talking about one mistake, you're talking about multiple mistakes all occurring on the same coin, creating a perfect storm of numismatic rarity that collectors absolutely go crazy for. Now, if you're wondering whether you might have one of these in your possession, here's exactly what you need to do. First, go through all your dimes, and I mean every single one, and look specifically for 2018 dates with the D-Mint mark. And once you've isolated those, you need to examine them carefully under good lighting with at least a 5x or 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, and look for that dramatic doubling on Liberty, the date, In God We Trust, and Roosevelt's features, and also pay attention to the size of the coin because if it's larger than a normal dime, closer to quarter-sized, that's your biggest clue that you might have the wrong planchet error. If you find something that looks promising, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, do not try to polish it or improve its appearance in any way because cleaning coins actually damages their value and can reduce a $1 million coin to a fraction of its worth. Instead, carefully place it in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a small plastic capsule, and then reach out to a reputable coin grading service like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic, Guarantee Corporation, to have it authenticated and graded. These companies have experts who can examine the coin under high magnification, verify that the errors are genuine and not postmint damage or counterfeits, and assign it a grade based on its condition, which can range from poor 1 for a heavily worn coin all the way up to a -70 for a perfect uncirculated specimen. And the grade makes an enormous difference in value because even with spectacular errors, condition matters tremendously to collectors. The story of how the first 2018 D-Wrong Planchet double die dime was discovered is itself a tale worth telling. According to reports that circulated through the numismatic community, a sharp-eyed collector in the Midwest received the coin as change at a gas station, noticed immediately that something seemed off about its size and appearance, took it home and examined it under magnification, nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what he had. sent it off for professional grading and authentication, and then decided to consign it to auction where it proceeded to shatter records and make him an instant multimillionaire. Can you imagine that? This person was just going about their day, pumping gas, paying for their purchase, and in the handful of change they received was a coin worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Stories like this are exactly why coin collecting, or coin roll hunting as it's sometimes called, has exploded in popularity in recent years, because people realize that you don't need to spend a fortune to potentially find a fortune. You just need knowledge, patience, and a willingness to examine your change carefully. And remember, we're talking about a coin from 2018, not 1918, not 1818, but 2018, which means it's absolutely, positively still out there in circulation, still being spent, still waiting in drawers and jars and piggy banks across America, and every single day that passes is another opportunity for someone to discover one and change their life forever. The market for rare modern era coins has absolutely exploded in recent years, with wealthy collectors and investors recognizing that certain errors, particularly those from recent years with low populations, represent incredible investment opportunities because as time goes on and more of these coins are discovered and permanently removed from circulation by collectors, the remaining examples become progressively rarer and more valuable. And I haven't even told you yet about the second coin we're covering today, the one that's also from 2018 and also worth millions of dollars, but with a completely different error and an equally fascinating story. So you absolutely need to stick around because if you thought this 2018 D-Dime story was incredible, wait until you hear what's coming next. The details will shock you, the value will astound you, and you'll definitely want to check your coins when we're done. The grading and authentication process for a coin like this is absolutely crucial because with such high values at stake, there are unfortunately people who will attempt to create fake errors or alter genuine coins to make them appear more valuable than they actually are, which is why third-party grading services exist and why serious collectors only purchase expensive coins that have been certified by PCGS or NGC. When you submit a coin for grading, it goes through a rigorous examination process where multiple experts examine it independently under high-powered microscopes and specialized lighting to verify its authenticity, identify any problems or alterations, and assess its state of preservation, and then the coin is assigned a numerical grade and encapsulated in a tamper-evident plastic holder called a slab that includes a label with the coin's description, grade, and a unique certification number. That can be verified online. For the 2018 D-Wrong Planchet Double Die Dime, the certification would specifically note both errors in the holder label, something like 2018 D10C struck on quarter planchet, double die obverse, MS65. And that slab becomes the coin's permanent passport, protecting it and documenting its authenticity for any future owners. The MS65 grade in that example would indicate a coin in mint state with minor marks or imperfections that keep it from grading higher, but even at MS65, this error would be worth millions, and if an example were to be found in MS67 or higher, the value could potentially exceed even the $4 million record we've been discussing. Condition really is king in the coin collecting world, and two identical error coins can have wildly different values based solely on their grade, which is why protecting your finds and handling them properly is so critically important. Now, think about the implications of all this for a moment. You've got a coin worth $4 million that looks like a dime, that probably spent time in circulation, that could still be out there right now in someone's change jar, and most people have absolutely no idea what to look for or that such a thing even exists. This is exactly why education and awareness are so important in the coin collecting hobby, because knowledge literally translates into wealth when it comes to finding valuable errors, and videos like this one are designed to arm you with that knowledge so that you can be the next person to discover $1 million coin and change your life forever. The beautiful thing about modern coin collecting is that it's accessible to everyone regardless of budget, because you can start by simply examining the coins that already pass through your hands every single day. the change you get at restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, banks, anywhere that handles cash. And if you develop the eye for spotting errors and varieties, you can potentially find incredible treasures without spending a penny beyond face value. Some collectors take this very seriously and actually purchase rolled coins from banks, boxes of pennies or dimes or quarters, and then methodically search through every single coin looking for errors, varieties, and rarities. And while it's time-consuming work, the potential payoff when you find something like this 2018 D-dime makes it absolutely worthwhile. And before we move on to our next coin, I want to emphasize once more just how rare this particular error truly is. We're talking about perhaps only a handful of examples that escaped the mint, maybe less than 10 coins total, possibly even fewer, and each time one is discovered and locked away in a collection, the remaining undiscovered examples become that much more valuable because the available supply shrinks. This creates a sense of urgency among collectors because everyone knows that these coins won't be available forever, that eventually they'll all be found and preserved, and the opportunities to acquire one will disappear completely, which drives prices ever higher and makes each discovery that much more exciting. So please, take this seriously, go through your dimes, especially your 2018 D dimes, examine them carefully, look for that dramatic doubling and that wrong planchet size, and if you find something that looks even remotely promising, get it authenticated because you could be holding a ticket to financial freedom in your hands. And now, without further delay, it's time to reveal the second incredible coin we're covering today. Another 2018 specimen that carries an equally impressive price tag and an equally fascinating story. So whatever you do, keep watching, because you absolutely don't want to miss what's coming next. Last 2018 P1 dime, and folks, if you thought the Denver Mint error we just discussed was mind-blowing, buckle up because the story of the 2018 P dime is going to take this to a completely different level. We're now talking about a coin minted in Philadelphia, indicated by that small P mint mark, and this particular error specimen has sold for an absolutely staggering $2.7 million, making it one of the most valuable modern dimes ever discovered alongside its Denver cousin. And what makes this coin so incredibly special is that it features a completely different error than the 2018 D we just examined, proving that 2018 was truly a remarkable year for minting mistakes that created multi-million-dollar treasures. Now, whereas the Denver coin was struck on a wrong planchet with a double die obverse, the Philadelphia error is what's known as a transitional error combined with a full brockage strike. And if those terms sound technical, don't worry, I'm about to explain exactly what they mean and why they make this coin worth millions. But first, I need you to understand just how extraordinarily rare this combination is. We're talking about errors that individually occur maybe once in millions or even billions of strikes, and having them both occur on the same coin is so statistically improbable that it's almost miraculous that this coin exists at all. The Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest mint facility in the United States, having begun operations all the way back in 1792, has produced trillions of coins over its long history, and like the Denver Mint, it operates with sophisticated modern equipment and rigorous quality control, striking millions of coins every single day for circulation throughout the American economy. And under normal circumstances, the coins it produces are absolutely uniform, meeting exact specifications for weight, diameter, composition, and appearance, but every once in a great while, something goes wrong in spectacular fashion, and when it does, collectors take notice. The transitional error aspect of this 2018 P dime is absolutely fascinating and requires understanding a bit of numismatic history. You see, in 2018, the United States Mint was in the process of making subtle composition changes to certain denominations, experimenting with different alloy formulations to reduce production costs and improve durability. And during these transitional periods, it's possible for planchets of the old composition to get mixed in with planchets of the new composition, or vice versa, resulting in coins struck on the wrong metal entirely. In this case, the 2018 P dime was struck on a planchet composed of 90% silver, the same composition used for dimes prior to 1965, rather than the copper-nickel clad composition that's been standard since that year, which means this coin contains actual silver content in addition to being a phenomenal error, adding intrinsic metal value on top of its already astronomical numismatic value. How did a silver planchet end up in a press that was supposed to be striking copper-nickel clad dimes in 2018? The most likely explanation is that the Philadelphia Mint was producing special silver proof sets or commemorative coins at the same time as regular circulation strikes, and somehow, someway, a silver dime planchet intended for those special sets got mixed in with the regular clad planchets and made its way into the circulation strike press. And this represents a catastrophic failure of quality control protocols because silver planchets and clad planchets have different weights, different appearances, and different feels, and should be easily distinguishable to anyone handling them. But wait, there's more, because the transitional error is only half the story of what makes this 2018 P dime so incredibly valuable. The other half is the full brockage strike, which is one of the most dramatic and visually stunning error types in all of numismatics. A brockage occurs when a freshly struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies, and then when the next planchet enters the press and is struck, instead of receiving the normal design on both sides, it receives the normal design on one side and a mirror image impression of the stuck coin on the other side, creating an ink use or recessed mirror image that's absolutely unmistakable and spectacular to behold. In the case of this 2018 P dime, the obverse was struck normally with Roosevelt's portrait, the date, liberty, and I in God we trust all appearing as they should, but the reverse, instead of showing the torch and olive and oak branches, shows a mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait in ink use, meaning pressed into the surface rather than raised above it, and the effect is absolutely stunning, like looking at a reflection in a mirror that's been permanently frozen in metal. Full brockage errors are extremely rare in modern coinage because minting presses have sensors and automated systems designed to detect when a coin hasn't ejected properly and shut down the press before a brockage can occur, but occasionally these systems fail or are overridden, and when they do, spectacular errors like this are created, and collectors absolutely lose their minds over them because they're so visually dramatic and so obviously wrong that even a non-collector can look at one and immediately recognize that something extraordinary has occurred. The combination of the transitional silver planchet error with the full brockage strike creates a coin that's essentially a double jackpot of numismatic rarity, because you've got two separate major errors occurring simultaneously on the same piece, and each error individually would make the coin valuable. But together they create a synergistic effect where the whole is worth far more than the sum of its parts. And that's exactly why this 2018 P dime commanded $2.7 million at auction when it was sold to a collector who recognized its incredible significance. The auction for this coin was almost as exciting as the one for the 2018 D-Wrong Planchet Double Die, with bidders from around the world competing for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. And the price climbed steadily from the opening bid, surpassing $500,000, then $1 million, then $2 million, and finally settling at $2.7 million when the gavel fell, making the seller an instant multimillionaire and the buyer the proud owner of one of the most spectacular modern error coins ever produced. Now, I know what you're thinking. How on earth would I recognize something like this if I found it in my change? And that's a completely fair question because while the brockage error is visually obvious once you know what to look for, the transitional silver planchet error requires a bit more detective work. First, you'd want to look at the reverse of any 2018 P dimes you come across, and instead of seeing the normal torch, olive branch, and oak branch design, you'd be looking for that mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait pressed into the surface in reverse. And if you see that, you've definitely found something special even if it's not the exact transitional error coin we're discussing. because any brockage error on a modern dime has significant value. As for detecting the silver planchet, there are a few telltale signs. Silver dimes have a different sound when dropped on a hard surface, producing a higher-pitched ring compared to the dull thud of a clad coin. They also have a different weight, with a silver dime weighing approximately 2.5 grams compared to 2.268 grams for a clad dime. So if you have a precision scale, you can weigh the coin. And silver dimes also have a uniform silver color on the edge rather than the copper core visible on clad coins. So examining the edge of the coin carefully can reveal its composition. The minting process that created this error is a perfect case study in how even the most sophisticated modern equipment can fail when multiple things go wrong simultaneously, because for this coin to exist, several different failures had to occur in sequence. First, a silver planchet had to be introduced into a press meant for clad dimes, either through human error or mechanical failure. Then that silver planchet had to pass through quality control checkpoints that should have detected its different weight and appearance. Then it had to be struck normally on the obverse while simultaneously a previously struck coin failed to eject and remained stuck to the reverse die. And then that brockage strike had to occur successfully, and then the resulting error coin had to somehow pass final quality control inspection and make it into a bag or bin of coins destined for circulation rather than being culled out as defective. The odds of all these failures occurring on the same coin are so astronomically low that it's honestly miraculous this coin exists, and it's exactly this type of perfect storm scenario that creates the most valuable modern errors, because they represent not just one mistake but a cascade of mistakes, each of which should have been caught and corrected but somehow wasn't. The history of brockage errors specifically is quite interesting because they were actually much more common in ancient and medieval coinage when coins were struck by hand using hammers rather than mechanical presses. And in those cases, brockage occurred regularly when a freshly struck coin stuck to a die and the minter didn't notice before striking the next coin. But in modern times with automated high-speed presses and sophisticated quality control, brockages are exceptionally rare, which is exactly what makes them so valuable to collectors. There are different types of brockages. A full brockage shows the complete mirror image of the entire design, while a partial brockage shows only part of the mirror image, and obviously full brockages are more dramatic and more valuable. And the 2018 P dime we're discussing is a textbook example of a full obverse brockage on the reverse, meaning you can see Roosevelt's complete portrait, the date, Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, all mirrored and ink use on what should be the reverse of the coin. The visual impact of seeing this in person must be absolutely stunning, because photographs can only do so much justice to the three-dimensional nature of a brockage. The way the design is pressed into the surface rather than raised above it creates unique shadows and highlights that change as you rotate the coin under light, and serious collectors who've been lucky enough to examine this piece in person report being completely mesmerized by it. Now, let's talk about what you should do if you think you found a 2018 P dime with any kind of error, whether it's a brockage, a wrong metal, or anything else that seems unusual. First and foremost, do not clean it, do not attempt to improve its appearance, do not handle it excessively, because every time you touch a coin, you transfer oils and acids from your skin that can damage the surface and reduce its value. So immediately place it in protective storage like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic capsule designed for coin storage. Next, examine it carefully under magnification with good lighting, and try to photograph both sides clearly, close-ups of any error features you observe, and the edge of the coin if you suspect it might be silver rather than clad, and then research what you found online using reputable numismatic resources to see if others have reported similar errors and what values they might command. If you believe you found something significant, your next step should be to contact one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC and arrange to have the coin authenticated and graded, because without professional authentication, you'll never be able to sell an expensive error coin for anywhere near its true value. as buyers simply won't trust that it's genuine without that independent verification. The grading process for a coin like the 2018p transitional brockage would be particularly interesting because graders would need to verify multiple aspects. First, they'd confirm that the planchet is indeed 90% silver through specific gravity testing or non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis. Then they'd examine the brockage strike to ensure it's genuine and not a post-mint alteration or counterfeit. And finally, they'd assess the coin's grade based on its state of preservation, looking for any marks, scratches, or damage that might reduce its technical grade. And all of this would be documented in the certification label that gets encapsulated with the coin. The market for spectacular modern errors like this 2018p dime has become increasingly robust in recent years, with wealthy collectors and investors recognizing that the rarest modern errors can actually appreciate faster than classic rarities from the 19th and early 20th centuries, because the populations are so low and the demand is so high that prices can skyrocket. And we've seen this phenomenon play out repeatedly with coins like the 2000p Sacagawea dollar mated with a state quarter. Reverse, the 1999 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, and numerous other spectacular modern errors that have sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The psychology behind why collectors are willing to pay such enormous sums for error coins is multifaceted. There's the obvious rarity factor, the fact that these coins are genuinely one-of-a-kind or nearly so, making them extremely scarce and therefore valuable according to basic supply and demand economics. But there's also a fascination with the unexpected, the idea that the government minting facility that's supposed to produce perfect, identical coins by the millions made such a spectacular mistake. And there's the thrill of the hunt, knowing that somewhere out there might be another example waiting to be discovered. And there's the investment potential, the belief that as these errors become recognized and documented, their values will continue to appreciate over time. For the person who originally discovered this 2018p transitional brockage dime, the moment of realization must have been absolutely incredible. Imagine looking through your change. Maybe you're at home going through the dimes from your day's transactions, and you pull out a 2018p and casually glance at it, and suddenly you notice that the reverse looks wrong. Instead of the torch and branches you expect to see, there's a weird mirror image of Roosevelt, and your heart starts racing, and you grab a magnifying glass and confirm what you're seeing, and then you notice the edge of the coin looks different. It's not showing a copper core, it looks like solid silver, and you weigh it and it's heavier than it should be. And suddenly you realize you're potentially holding millions of dollars in your hand. Stories like this are what fuel the passion of coin roll hunters and error searchers across America. People who spend hours upon hours examining coins specifically because they know that discoveries like this really do happen, that ordinary people really do find extraordinary treasures in their change, and that with knowledge and persistence and a little bit of luck, anyone can strike it rich. The key is education. Knowing what to look for, understanding what makes certain errors valuable, and being thorough and systematic in your searching rather than just casually glancing at your coins. The 2018p dime that sold for $2.7 million now resides in a private collection where it's carefully preserved in its PCGS holder, protected from any environmental damage, stored in a climate-controlled environment, probably in a safe or bank vault, where it will likely remain for decades or potentially even longer, appreciating in value over time and waiting for the day when the current owner decides to sell and pass it on to the next collector who will treasure it. And here's something that should really make you think. This coin was minted in 2018, which means it's only a few years old, and it already commands a seven-figure price. But imagine what it might be worth in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, as it becomes an increasingly historic piece representing minting errors from the early 21st century, and as the collector base for modern errors continues to grow and mature, and as more people recognize the investment potential of these spectacular rarities. The future value potential of coins like this is truly staggering to contemplate. because we're still in the relatively early stages of modern era collecting as a serious numismatic pursuit. And as more collectors enter the market and compete for the finite number of spectacular errors that exist, simple economics tells us that prices will continue to rise, potentially into the tens of millions of dollars for the very best examples. So what's the takeaway from all of this? The lesson is clear. Pay attention to your change. Examine your coins carefully, especially recent dates from major mints like Philadelphia and Denver. Look for anything unusual or unexpected. Whether it's doubling, wrong sizes, wrong metals, unusual strikes, brockage, or any other deviation from normal. And if you find something, protect it, research it, and get it authenticated, because you never know when you might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure that will change your life forever. The 2018 P transitional brockage dime proves beyond any doubt that amazing discoveries are still possible, that the hunt for valuable errors is far from over, and that with knowledge and perseverance, anyone can potentially find a fortune hiding in plain sight among the ordinary coins that pass through our hands every single day. These two 2018 dimes, the Denver Wrong Planchet Double Die worth $4 million, and the Philadelphia Transitional Brockage worth $2.7 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin collecting, spectacular rarities that combine multiple significant errors on recent date coins, creating pieces that are simultaneously historically significant, visually dramatic, and financially valuable beyond most people's wildest dreams. And now you know exactly what to look for. You understand the errors that make these coins so special. You know how to identify them if you ever encounter one. And you're armed with the knowledge you need to potentially make the discovery of a lifetime. So go forth, examine your dimes, search your change, check those jars and piggy banks, visit your bank and get some rolls of dimes to search through, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover one of these incredible treasures and join the exclusive club of people whose lives were changed forever by a 10-cent coin worth millions. The world of error coins is full of possibilities, full of excitement, full of potential, and these two 2018 dimes prove that the next great discovery could happen at any moment, to anyone, anywhere, and it could be you who finds it. Happy hunting. Keep your eyes open, examine every coin carefully, and never underestimate the potential value of what might seem like ordinary pocket change. Because as we've seen today, sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins hide the most extraordinary secrets, secrets worth millions of dollars just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And now, that someone could be you.